ReefDudes is sponsored by Ecotech Marine and Bulk Reef Supply. Today we're getting an update on the WaterBox 7225. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. I realized it's actually been a few months I've done an update on the WaterBox Peninsula tank, so figured we're about due, so let's get into it. So the tank has been filling in rather nicely. It's really starting to look mature. A lot of the corals and colonies are getting to be a fair size now, and it's to the point where I'm starting to have issues of stuff kind of growing into each other. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses. There's definitely been a few issues here and there. You can see this guy right in front of the MP60, I'm assuming just because it's blasted with flow. You can see there is a bit of algae and a little bit of die-off where it's getting blasted. Or if you look at this side of it, it seems to be okay. And all the stuff that's a bit lower is fine. So I think it's literally just that getting blasted with, 6,000 gallons per hour plus of flow. So that's kind of my guess on that one. We'll see. So I might frag off a couple of those little branches and melt them lower somewhere else. Now the rainbow loom, this guy has been growing like crazy. You can see it's really encrusting the back wall. And you see there's tons of branches that are either growing into it or they're growing out of it, which is a pretty cool look. If you look over here, whatever that big pink red guy, that is growing over top of the Walt Disney. So again, some of this I might frag back a little bit just to give some of the other corals a little bit more space. But it's kind of where things are at now. There's lots of stuff that is growing into each other, and I'm purposely having to frag stuff back to make sure that it's not choking each other out or taking each other out. Some of them I just leave it, like the green slimer and the Miyagi tort. Like they grow together. And they just kind of fuse and start to grow over top of each other. So it's fairly subtle on that front. I did remove some of these green zoas. These ones still are taking over a little bit, so I haven't done it yet, but I've had intentions of calc pasting a few of them because they'll just randomly sprout up in a different colony somewhere. So I would like to knock those guys back a bit, or at least the random rovers in the tank. Coming over here, Ghani Garden has been growing like crazy. It is looking fabulous. When all the polyps are in, you can see just kind of like big bumps is growing out in different directions. So I have been really happy with these. I am tempted to pick up a bunch more Ghanies to add to the tank and a few other areas. Come up here. I actually thought that was Red Planet for ages, and I recently learned it is Jimmy Bean. So slightly different one, or Bill Murray, I've called either one, but that guy. So apparently I have not won against my nemesis Red Planet, so I'm gonna find some and try it again to see if it is happy in the tank now. If we come over here, this yellow guy, I don't know if it's Wolverine or what that one is, but I just had a few little teeny bits of flesh on there, and it's been growing like crazy out of it. So it does go to show you just never know what can actually grow in your tank, and even the little teeny bit of something could turn into something over time. So it's always worth leaving stuff in if it's got some good hope to come back. Going up a little bit, Orange Passion seems to be really taking off lately. It's kind of hard to see from this angle, but it has been growing quite well. One beside it, we got a nice fuzzy Millie. The goldenrod, this thing has been growing like crazy. This is a massive, it's probably about 2 softball sizes worth, and it all started from one little tiny branch. So that has been growing well. Now that is an Anacarpora, and it has been very, very happy. Now this guy, the Reef Wraptropagana, this guy is paling out over here. So I don't know if it might be actually too much light, because I do have a chunk of it over here, and it does have much deeper, darker colors. So I might actually relocate that one to somewhere else in the tank, because the one over here, just the colors are a lot deeper. They do look better. If we look at the Zoo Island, you can see those little minty ones again that are trying to take over a little bit. So I think I'm going to calc paste some of those guys. My grafted Monty is getting huge. However, my diamond goby keeps covering it in sand, so I do have to blast that guy off later. And on that same note, you can see the Space Invader Pectina, same thing. A little bit of die-off on the bottom. It was all buried in the sand, so I'm going to have to find a spot to melt this guy. Come up a little bit, the Marvin the Martian, that was one teeny little bit that has been growing like crazy, so for whatever reason that finally hit its groove and has been taken off. These little mushrooms, I have no idea what they are. A buddy gave me a couple, and they do have little weird bounces all over them. Again, these guys have exploded too. They're starting to fight back that golden Monty a little bit. So we'll see. I haven't decided I'm going to move them or let them stay there, but they've definitely been growing pretty good. The torches haven't really had a big change. I did lose one single head of the green one. Not sure why, kind of right in the middle. The other one's been doing pretty good. Hasn't really, I did that KFC dip probably 7 months ago, and I probably should have done it again, but since I have a newborn, it just hasn't happened. Now the torches haven't really grew a ton, but they haven't really faded. They've kind of just been status quo, so I might actually do a dip on those again and see how that changes things, or maybe I'll frag off half and put it in the office tank, because the frags of those in there seem to be doing really well. And if we come over a bit, you can kind of see the outer chaos zoas have been taking over this area. We got a little more of the rainbow loom. There was a big chunk over there I fragged off just to kind of clean things up a little bit. And same on some of these other guys. There's been a lot of these that I've fragged back because they were getting too close to the glass, or just when I use the algae scraper, kind of self-frags them. A couple less hammers over in this corner. I did move a bunch of them over to the office tank. So the office lagoon tank, I can do a little more Euphilia heavy in that tank. And coming up the rock, consider the Setosa. That thing's been growing like crazy. The branching Sapphastra is pretty happy over there as well. Come up on top of the rock, you can kind of see where the Walt Disney is, and that other pink eye is definitely overshadowing it quite a bit. So I think I might cut off that little chunk right there and give the Walt Disney a little more room to grow. And you don't really see it from the other side of the tank, but the rainbow clove polyps, those guys have been filling in all kinds of gaps in between these acros. You almost lose them just because they're so thick and hiding in the cracks, but nice little splash of color here and there. And speaking of corals growing over top of each other, you can kind of see how the green slime are just encrusting over that deep water acro. So coming back into the sump, not a ton has changed down here. Still got the NIAS 220 with my DIY scrubber above it. I do have intentions of making kind of a prettier, more refined topper for that in the near future. Down here I did move the Neptune level sensor into the skimmer chamber. I do use calc instead of my ATO now, so it just kind of gives me a nice indication if things are rising or lowering or staying consistent. Coming over here, I did show this one a while ago, but I do have the Blade refugium light in here, which I do have mounted inside of the lid. So that really does cut down on a ton of the light spill. I'm very happy with that in here. As you can see, the Chaeto has been growing out of the water and it's been growing very well. So I did add the Nero 3 back in as well, just for all the stuff I've been dosing. I've been playing with sodium hydroxide a bit, or lye, as my alkalinity supplement, and it is very high pH, and it was like kind of almost gelling a little bit. So I added the Nero in there just to make sure it's mixed up really well. So both the calc and the lye get mixed in really well, and just make sure nothing builds up kind of funky in the tank. Next chamber over, we got the calc reactor. This thing's been going for quite a while now. I got my little DIY blades on top, and this is dosing calc about 5,500 to 6,000 mils a day range. Do that to do about 45-50 mils a minute at the calcium reactor, and there is about 80 mils of ELK, in my case the hydroxide, on top of that. So it's a bit of a special blend of mixing everything, and same with the calcium, about 75 mils of that on top of that. So that's been my special blend, kind of currently experimenting with that one. And it seems to be keeping my levels stable, and it's kind of funny how much I have to dose now with everything growing. Definitely goes to show over time once corals fill in just how much they actually suck up in the tank. But overall, I'm gonna say I've been pretty happy. The growth has been great for most corals. You know, questionably too much growth on some of them, but the way she works, can't complain about that one. Lights, you might have noticed actually, these are something I've been prototyping for a while now. I did some DIY light shades. So it's taken me quite a bit to get it kind of like tuned into like basically perfectly marry up to the Radion and knock out a bunch of the light spills. So these are something I might turn to like a future product, but it's been lots of prototypes to make something that looks super duper sleek. A lot of the other ones I've seen so far, they were just too bulky or they weren't very low profile. So ReefDudes spirits need things nice and low profile, keep that sleek look on the tank. And just for fun, let's kill some flow and get some of that top down goodness. So with the flow off, seeing that top down is honestly one of my favorite views. Whenever I'm working on the tank or, you know, water change or something, just love that view. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this update on the WaterBox 7225 Peninsula tank. If you did, be sure to hit that like button if you're new. Make sure you subscribe and I'll catch you guys on the next update.